When you want to combine a highly detailed model car body with a functional RC chassis, you may need to get creative when it comes to how exactly you're going to get it mounted. Creating body mounts is the topic of today's video, so let me show you some parts and techniques that I like to use for my projects. Hello everyone and welcome! In a previous video I posted a couple weeks ago here on the channel, I covered all of the small size RC electronics that I like to use for these 1/24th and 1/25th scale plastic model conversions. In today's video, I'm going to be covering another topic that I hope will be helpful to any fellow builders out there. Like with most things in this niche of the hobby, a lot is going to depend on your particular situation, such as what model kit and chassis you're using, and how detailed and lifelike you're wanting to make your project. When you're building a static model, there generally isn't any need to make the body removable, or allow access to any functional components. The body can simply be permanently glued into place, just as instructed. However, when we're building an RC vehicle, utilizing a static model kit, modifications are usually going to be needed. Making the body fully removable, just as you see here, is a great way to allow access to the chassis and electronics below, making it easy to both change the battery and perform any necessary maintenance or repairs. Now for some projects, making the body fully removable isn't always going to be ideal. I'll talk a little more about those situations later on in this video. But for now, I want to showcase one of my favorite methods for adding body mounts to your smaller scale RC model car projects. It's a method you've likely seen me use many times previously if you've been following along with a lot of the builds that I've showcased here on the channel, but I've yet to cover this particular topic in a standalone video like this one, so here's the method I'd like to showcase first. In order to securely hold the body in place while still allowing it to be easily removable, I like to use magnets. Specifically ones like these high-strength rare earth magnets. These can be purchased from a number of different online retailers, whether that be Amazon, eBay, AliExpress, and so on. These particular magnets here are ones that we've included in some of our RC chassis kits. They're inexpensive, can be found in many different sizes, and are very strong, even in these smaller sizes. Magnets like these can come in handy for many different RC projects, whether large or small scale. For example, they can be used to help keep hoods, doors, trunks, and tailgates closed, as can be seen here on this Jeep pickup. They can also be nice for certain accessories, such as having items in the bed of a pickup that you don't want to have sliding around or risk falling out, but then you also don't want to have them permanently glued or mounted using hardware. If that's the case, you can simply use magnets instead to hold them in place while still allowing them to be removable. No need to drill holes or detract from the appearance of the vehicle, and then you can have the option of installing different accessories or arranging them in different ways, all thanks to the secure but non-permanent hold of magnets. Another use of magnets that's become more common is for connecting lights. Rather than having a more conventional plug that needs to be separated in order to fully remove the body from the chassis, instead you can make the connection with magnets. All you have to do is drop the body into place and the lights are now connected. No need to mess with the plug. Just a few examples of the many uses of magnets in the RC hobby, but let's get back to the specific topic of this video, securing plastic model bodies to RC chassis. For this demonstration, I have a 1/25th scale 69 Dodge Charger body from an MPC model kit, along with one of our 3D printable FFR SC1 chassis sized specifically for this kit. That of course can be found on our Patreon if you're interested in 3D printing one of these chassis for yourself. But really, no matter what body and chassis combination you have, the process will be pretty much the same for this particular setup that I'll be showcasing here. In this situation, this is going to be about as easy as it gets for a few different reasons. For one, with this chassis design, we have some nice flat spots that we'll be able to either glue magnets directly onto, or glue a post into place, which will have the magnet sitting on top. Also, this body has some nice flat spots, both under the hood and under the rear deck lid. That's going to give us a nice, relatively flat surface, almost perpendicular to the chassis, which will provide some great spots to glue the magnets to. Also, this car is not going to have an opening hood. In fact, it's molded into the body in this particular kit, so the entire underside of this large, flat hood can be used as a spot to place the magnets. Not every body is going to be as easy and convenient to secure to the chassis with this method that I'll be showcasing here, but problem solving and ingenuity is often necessary for this niche of the hobby. You're building these models in a way that they're really not intended to be used, so you kind of have to figure things out for yourself to make it all work. What I'm going to be doing here is gluing 4 posts onto the chassis, and then have a set of magnets on top of each one to hold the body in place. These posts here are 3D printed with a 4mm outer diameter to match the magnets that I'll be using, but of course styrene tubing or whatever else you have on hand will work as well. We have the STL files for these posts included in a number of our 3D printable chassis kits, but you'll also find them attached below this video if you're watching on Patreon. I'm using 4mm outer diameter magnets here. I've used this size for mounting bodies on many projects previously. I think it strikes a good balance of not being too large while still providing a very strong hold, but of course it's not like the exact size magnet you're using is really that critical. I'll start by gluing the posts into place on the chassis. Their exact position isn't very critical, but I want to think about a few things, such as making sure that they're not going to be interfering with any of the moving parts of the chassis, nor be in the way of any of the electronics. They also need to align with the areas on the underside of the body that I want to secure the magnets to, and not get in the way of anything that's going to be mounted to the body later on. But with the posts now being securely glued to the chassis in the spots that I want, I need to trim them down so the body is sitting at the correct height. I don't want the body to sit too high or too low, and I don't want it to be tilted to either side. If I get one side that looks perfect, I can do some measuring and duplicate that on the opposite side to make sure everything is even. It's not like it's a real exact science or anything like that. The body is basically just decoration after all for the functional RC chassis below. So it's just a matter of getting it lined up correctly and looking as good as I can. Now at this point everything was looking how I wanted, but obviously once I place these magnets on top, the body is going to be sitting way too high. So what I need to do is measure and account for the height that this set of magnets is going to add and chop each post down accordingly. I'll double check again that everything is the same side to side and then glue one magnet to the top of each post. Everything to do with the chassis is now complete, so what I have to do next is glue the second set of magnets to the underside of the body. I'll go ahead and add some small pieces of paper in between each magnet. That way I don't have to worry about them accidentally getting glued together. Next, I'll slap on a relatively thick and slow drying adhesive, something like shoe glue or a 2-part epoxy. By the way, I made a whole video dedicated to the types of adhesives I like to use for different parts of these projects, so definitely check that out if you're interested in learning more about that. But basically, I want to use a thick adhesive so that any gap between the magnets and the body that may be needed to get the body to sit correctly will be filled, and then I also want it to dry slowly so I'll have some time to really get everything lined up perfectly before it starts to set. Here you can see I'm using some popsicle sticks, but you can really use anything that you have on hand to get the body sitting exactly how you want over top of the chassis. I'm checking to make sure that the body is level from one side to another, and I'm also making sure that each of the wheels are aligned correctly within the wheel wells. And once I'm satisfied with its position, I'll give that glue plenty of time to fully harden. In this case, I left it to sit overnight. If all goes well, you should be able to easily separate the body from the chassis. And just like that, all of the magnets are in place and the body mounts are complete. The body is now very easy to secure and will always be aligned perfectly. If I wanted a stronger hold, using larger sized magnets would be a good idea, but I think the amount of strength that these 4mm magnets provide is more than sufficient for this type of project. Now there really isn't much in the way of adjustability with this setup, although you can place a shim in between one or more of the magnets if you find that either the entire body or certain sections of it are sitting a little low. Adding shims can also be useful if you find that too much force is required to separate the magnets and therefore you want to weaken the bond. But you're really going to want to try and get everything lined up and positioned correctly right from the beginning before that glue dries. If the body isn't positioned correctly, you may have to start over, as again, there really is no adjustability with this body mount setup. Magnets are great as long as you get them positioned exactly where you need them to be, as you can just drop that body on top and it'll be perfectly aligned every time. Though if you don't want the pressure of having to get those magnets positioned exactly in the right spot, Velcro is a nice alternative, as it provides a secure way of mounting the body while still being easily removable. Unlike magnets, you're not locked into a specific position, so there's no worries about being exact when you're adding that Velcro, as every time you place the body onto the chassis, you have the opportunity to line everything up the way you want. If you're going to be including an interior in your vehicle, such as the shallow interior I installed in this Nissan, the bottom can be a great place to secure some magnets, just as I've done here. With this chassis design and shallow interior, there's no need for any posts to be added. I just glued in some sets of magnets and that's all it takes. Obviously, it's super convenient to have the body fully removable on these types of vehicles. It not only makes changing the battery extremely easy, but you also have full access to the functional RC chassis for repairs or maintenance, without any risk of damaging the body. Having it be fully removable, though, may not be as easy to do for certain projects, especially some of the more detailed and lifelike ones. This 69 Chevelle I'm currently building is a good example of that. Rather than mounting the body onto an RC chassis, I'm modifying the chassis pieces included in that model kit to have functional suspension and drivetrain components, maintaining as lifelike of an appearance as possible. This, combined with a full interior, detailed engine bay, and functional lights, means that having a fully removable body like what you see here is going to be much more of a challenge, and possibly more trouble than it's worth. With this in mind, you may need to get a bit more creative when it comes to making the battery removable and certain components accessible. With this project in particular, I decided to make the trunk able to open, allowing easy access to change the battery. I won't be gluing the body into place, so it can be carefully slid off in the event that maintenance or repairs is necessary, but I don't want to have to remove the body just to change the battery, so this opening trunk will definitely be a good addition. Another important thing to keep in mind when mounting the body is to make sure that the front wheels have enough room to steer and the suspension can move up and down with little to no wheel rub occurring. If necessary, some massaging around the wheel arches and thinning the plastic in these areas can allow for more room. Obviously, the more subtle these modifications, the better, but this can oftentimes be a necessary step in order to allow enough room. With the sanding and trimming often being required when using one of these bodies with an RC chassis, this is one reason why I would strongly recommend getting the body mounted before doing any painting or detail work. If you're careful, you can sand and trim around the wheel arches without damaging the paint on the outside, but it's a bit more of a risky game you're playing. But there you go, a little overview and tutorial of how I often like to mount these model car bodies, but of course there are certainly other methods that you can use as well. This is just one of those methods that I find most useful and seems to work great for a variety of different projects. I certainly hope you found today's video helpful. Feel free to subscribe for more videos like this one, and as always, a huge thanks for all of our channel members and Patreon supporters for helping to make these videos possible. We have lots of 3D print files over on our Patreon, including this functional FFR SE1 chassis that you see here, which is a great base for a variety of different plastic model to RC conversions. Best of luck to all you builders out there, and as always, a huge thanks to all of you for watching. More videos on the way, so be sure to stay tuned.